Okay, so I'm starting this over. I got totally wrecked the moment I went into the ruins. Dude, I just went straight to the Ancient Guardian and I got attacked by Terrorbeaks while I was on the Ancient Guardian. And man, you can get shredded by Terrorbeaks when you're stuck in that little corner there. Oh man, without that insanity bug, this is a way different play than what I'm normally used to. So I guess I gotta change my strategy just a tad bit. Basically what we're going to talk about today is finance. So I'm going to tell you a quick story to start off with. So I had this personal finance class in my first senior semester, and the teacher for this personal finance class was a very bad personal finance teacher. They had no reason they should have been a personal finance teacher. She had told us, she's in student debt still. Keep in mind, this person is like 60 something at this point, and they still have student debt, and they're teaching us a class about personal finance. So that's, makes a lot of sense. And this person should definitely be doing that. So what we have in that class is for a month or so, we had a certain project that we were doing along with our other work, which was that we would invest $100,000 into some fake stocks. And in those fake stocks, what we were doing with those fake stocks is just seeing, how much we'd make in a month or how much we'd lose or however it would turn out, right? And at the end of the month, there was a correction in the market on the last day. So the market really tanked on that day, went down like, I think it was like 10%. And then the exact day after we turned in the project, it went up 10%. So all the value went straight back. And that was just some BS correction. It wasn't actually a real correction. And what we'll do is we'll go in this cave here. So with that correction, everyone's little fake portfolios were down, right? Basically, there was like one kid in the class who had it up. And the teacher decided to use that as a moment to tell us how we should never invest in stocks and how it is gambling and how there's no way to possibly do it right and how you'll always lose money. Very good teacher, of course, who obviously knew a lot about personal finance and is a very intelligent human being that I respect a lot. Uh, okay, so what happened there? She's telling us that. Meanwhile, the market, if you invest in, say, an index fund, which is, it's like a little piece of a stock for a whole bunch of companies. So you'll get some. Normally, it's like the top 500 companies. You could get one that's like the top 200 companies and just gets a little piece of each one. That way, if one goes out of business because like a meteor strikes their headquarters and kills all the employees type thing, then you're not going to lose all your money, right? If you do that, which is not risky at all, generally you'll earn about, on average, 10% return a year. And so that's gambling now? I don't understand how that's gambling. Okay, let's just make it so everyone's poor. And the thing is, that is not just 10% interest of simple interest. You gotta keep in mind that that is compound interest. So when you start going year after year after year after year with that money just staying in that account, suddenly you're having this enormous amount of money coming in because, you're getting it to multiply eventually. And it's starting to make a big amount of money because it's compounding interest. And what compounding interest is, if you don't know what that is, and if you're never taught, which this is something that you should be taught, but a lot of people aren't, is so the money that the money made also starts making more money with the exact same like percentage, right? So if I am up to 110% after 1 year, that 10% that 10% that I'm making every year also goes on that 110%. So I actually made 11% in the second year versus my 10% on that initial first year, right? Now, if you do that and you compound that for years and years and years, suddenly you have a lot of money, and it's very important. Now, let's talk a little bit more about how you get there before investing. So, investing, you got to have some money to invest first, right? So, what you're probably going to want to do is have a job or some way you can earn money. Maybe, you're mowing the neighbor's lawn. Maybe you work at Mickey D's like I did for a bit. And maybe you're doing one of those things, right? So let's say you're doing that now. You're working your 40 hours a week at McDonald's when you're 16, 17. You earn some money. You put that in your account. You're not spending much of it. You're keeping most of it. And what you do then at 18 is you can go ahead and throw, say, 10 grand in. And let's see what that is in the compound interest calculator. I'll throw that up on the screen. I can't do that type of calculation in my head. That would be way too tough. But I would imagine by the time you're 65, the money that is probably going to be absurd. Probably like north of $1 million. And that's how much that money is worth at you're 18. So no one's going to talk about that, though. No one's going to talk about, oh, yeah, you know, you got to invest when you're 18 years old. And that's actually going to be worth some crazy amount of money by the time you're 65. And then you actually don't even really need to save for retirement. If you just put that 10 grand in at 18, you can kind of just skip that whole step the rest of your life, because that money when you're 18 is worth so much more than every other year of your life. Because, I mean, even if you look at it, you know, you have $1 million invested. You're making 10% on that. Think about that. That's 100 grand. That's not 1 grand anymore. So that 1 year extra made it an extra 100 grand then, if it is north of $1 million. And like I'm saying it is, I'm not sure if that actually is right, but I need some more rocks here, man. But yeah, and then basically, I'll tell you what the whole secret to getting rich thing is here, which isn't all the BS that they like to spout that it actually is. All it is leveraged investments and then crazy risky investments. So what they do is they can go and say, here in the United States, here's an example. I think it's called like an FHA loan, which is a government-backed loan for real estate. And you can get that for, I think, 3.5% down. So you are only paying 3.5% of how much a house costs, and then you can buy that house. And the rest of it is going to be on a loan. You're going to be paying the bank back. I would probably put that on a 30-year mortgage. A lot of people like to say anything but 15 years is a scam, and they're 100% incorrect, because that gives you higher leverage, which gives you more access to make more money because you are able to get more loaned out, and it makes it so that you can cover that debt by renting it out. And then when you're doing that, the investment is fulfilling itself and paying down the principal. So eventually, after that 30 years, you're going to own that house outright, plus you're going to have all the money extra that rent was bringing in. It's not going to just cover the debt. And so with that, what you can do is, part of the way along, if you buy houses that are undervalued, you can get them, you can renovate them like just a little bit. Like say you repaint the inside, and then you can get them re-estimated for how much their value is. And then what you do is called a cash out finance. And that gets you some money in your pocket. Basically what you do is you're taking on another mortgage for the remaining amount of money, and they just hand that money to you in cash. I mean, really, it's going to be like online money, because it's going to be too much money to hand to you in dollar bills, but you get what I mean. And then with that, what you do is you go possibly to the same bank, possibly to another bank, and you go and say, I want to buy this house now. And you do that until you buy 100 houses that are just a little bit under market value. You know, you repaint the inside, whatever it is you do that makes them just a tad bit more valuable than the money you put into reworking them on the inside. And eventually here, you have 100 houses, and now you're this huge landlord, and now you're getting the debt paid down on 100 houses, and all that money extra is coming into you. Let's say it's an extra, you know, $100 a month from each one. That's 10 grand going into your personal bank account. Plus, you're probably having a couple $100 of principal paid down. So let's say that's 30 grand from those 100 houses. You're actually making 40 grand a month towards your net worth after you buy 100. And certain people, what they do is they buy these big apartment buildings that are like hundreds of units. People, you know, some more famous ones like Donald Trump, he will buy ones that have like thousands at a time with this exact same method. And then you do the exact same thing. If you have 1,000 of them and you're making $100 a month on rent, plus you have all that money going towards principal, then you're making absurd amounts of money really fast. Now, real estate, not the only way to do leverage. I'm just going with a really easy example. And also, this is something I want to bring up because barely anyone understands this. That is what caused the 2008 recession, and we haven't learned a thing. So basically, when you start giving out loans for no reason to people who should not be getting loans, and you're only requiring them to pay down 3.5%, which is really, it's nothing in terms of the grand scheme of things, then what you're going to do is you're going to increase the price of houses to a level where they should not be at. And then eventually you have one of those guys with 100 houses who goes bankrupt. He can't pay anymore because somewhere along the way, a renter stopped paying, right? And he didn't have enough money to cover it. So eventually he's not able to cover his debt, and the banks foreclose on him, and then he has to declare bankruptcy, so he doesn't own any of those houses anymore, and the banks have to take that on. And by them taking on those houses, they're bad at taking on houses, so they're not going to use them very well, and they are going to lose a ton of money. And that starts to happen repeatedly until the housing market price all drops, because when the bank gets that, they decide that they just want to liquidate that house really quickly, and they'll sell it at a price lower than what the value is right there. So maybe it's 80%. But when you have enough of those guys go bankrupt all at once, the housing market will suddenly collapse. So you'll have the banks doing 80% of the value on the houses one day, but then the next bank over will go, we're going to do 80% on that 80%. So now you're down to 64%. And then you have a really bad time coming on for everyone, because you just collapsed the entire financial system through the housing market because you were giving out loans that you should not be giving out. You know, you're giving them to these people who they have nothing really to back up these loans other than the rent on the houses for what they're buying, which can work to a certain degree. But if you want more than that, if you want it to be a stable investment as a banker, so they gave out those subpar loans. And then eventually, with those subpar loans, it made the entire housing market collapse with that 80% on the 80% on the 80% until houses were at, like, I don't remember what the pricing was, but it was like a fifth of what it was, what the houses should be at, of what the houses were actually worth. And then it was like less than that for what they were at the peak of the market there before the bubble popped. So that's what caused that. But generally, if you want to be that guy who becomes very rich and you have all the skills that you need for that, you have all those attributes, you know, you got the genetic intelligence, you got the discipline built in, you got the conscientiousness, you got what's the last one? Attractiveness. You got all those things, and you want to be that person. Generally, what you want to do is you want to find something similar that the other people really aren't looking at. So if you're looking at houses, you're pretty much a normie, and you're getting in on something that'll probably have a bubble pop again, because quite frankly, that is it doesn't make sense for houses to be at the price that they're at, because all these people buy them up so that they can rent them out because they can get easy loans on them. Once again, we're having the same exact thing happen. But what you could do is invest in any other thing that you're able to get a good loan on and get leverage on. So say, for instance, you know a lot about industrial equipment. So you go up and you buy 100 backhoes and you rent them out to people. You are renting out those backhoes to people who need them, like construction companies or something, or plumbers or whatever, whoever needs them today, right? And you know how to make money on those. What you have there is a business, a scalable business that rents out backhoes to people, and no one else is really in that market, right? Or there's very few people compared to real estate, at least. And so you've really lowered your risk, and then you could also probably make a lot more on renting those out than you could on the houses. Maybe you're making, you know, I don't have any idea how much a backhoe costs. I would imagine they could vary quite a bit, but let's say it's 100,000 and you're making $1,000 a month, plus you're paying down the interest and the principal for them, plus that loan's only like 3 years long, and then you own the backhoe, because they gotta lower their risk, right? Because they don't want a backhoe. They can't do much with that compared to you. So they go ahead, they loan you that because you've shown that you did well with 2 backhoes before, right? And eventually you get up to your 100 backhoes and you rent those all out, and you're making some pretty decent money. And that's just a business. That's all that is. And yeah, basically that would be an effective way to build a business, and then you're using leverage to make a lot of money very fast. So the old saying does ring true still, that you need money to make money. The thing is, that money doesn't even have to be yours. So if you are that person with that business, you don't even have to be the person making the down payment. What you can do instead there is you can get someone else to do the down payment for you through an investment, and then you're going to give them some of that money back, right? You're going to make it so that their investment pays off, and they're going to earn some money off of that. And so they want to get involved then. And then you can buy 1,000 backhoes if you want, right? It's a completely scalable business as long as you got people to be renting them out to, and you got systems to do that. So you could go from 50 backhoes in 1 month, and then suddenly you have 1,000 backhoes the next month if you have the right systems in place. And if you're making $1,000 a month on each backhoe times 1,000 backhoes, you're making $1 million each month. Plus, you're paying down the principal on each of them, which is going to be even more. So you'd be making a couple million each month towards your net worth, and then 1 million of that is going straight to your bank account through cash, right? And that's basically how that works. It's not any of this crap where they're like, oh yeah, it's hard work, blah 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 blah. That's BS. That of course you're going to have to do that while running a business, because you got to make certain that the thing runs right. But it's not complicated. They make it more complicated than it has to be. No person can work, 1,000 hours to make it so that their 30 grand a year job is making $1 million a year. That's not how that works. You need something scalable where you can earn just a bit off of each thing, and eventually you'll be in the money. And we're coming right up on the end of day 2 here. And I want to talk a little bit about, I talked about those attributes earlier. So attractiveness, you can increase. So that's one of our 4 things that makes it so that you earn more money. Intelligence, you can't increase intelligence. Education doesn't help with intelligence. I don't know who keeps saying that. That's BS. And then what else was there? Conscientiousness, you can't really change. Discipline, it's very contested about discipline. No one really knows if you can change discipline. There's some people that say you can, some people that say you can't. The people who say you can would probably say something like join the military or do martial arts, because those have a big focus on discipline. I'm not certain if you actually can. I'm starting to think that it's just a part of your upbringing, and if your parents made you work when you were younger, then suddenly you're more able to work when you're older, and you're more used to being able to do that. But I don't know. I don't have the answers there. But basically, that's what you need to know about finances, is invest your money. Even if you're going to just, invest in an index fund with no leverage, eventually that'll make you a lot of money, especially if you're doing it for a long period of time, like for retirement. And then if you want to make a lot of money off of it, you can go with something riskier, like investing with leverage. If you can build a business, that's our backhoe example business. And suddenly you can make a lot of money extremely quickly because you have investors paying down the principal, and then you have those banks giving you loans to buy more backhoes. And that can make you millions of dollars within a year. That's just how that goes. But you got to be able to create the systems for that business and all of that stuff. So it's not simple here, The concept's simple. Execution is difficult. Okay, I'm going to end it here today, folks. Not as far as last time, but, we're decently far. We'll see what I do next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.